Hello, this is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video is our 10th 6-inch square for our year-long crochet along. Today's is the Rose Quartz for October. You can see it's a pretty little rose. It's got a little green background, and I think it just turned out lovely. Now, if you don't know what we're doing, each month for the year of 2017, I designed a 6-inch square for that month, and as the inspiration is the birthstone of that month. October is the 10th month, and so that's why we're doing the Rose Quartz. Now, we have 2 more months, and then at the end, in January, we have a project that we're going to make with these 6-inch squares, and you'll have a total of 12 when we're finished. Now, this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and on the blog it is also a step-by-step photo tutorial for those who like to see a still picture. And you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath the video. So this is our 6-inch square for the month of October. October's birthstone is Rose Quartz, and so I decided to make a fun little rose. And for our project today, we're going to be using Red Heart Super Saver number 4 yarns. You can use any worsted weight number 4 yarns that you want to for this project. I'm using this pink for the rose, and for the trim, I'm going to be using just a basic green for the underneath part where the leaves are. And then, of course, just a basic white for the white portion. We'll be stitching today with our H hook. This is a 5.0 millimeter H hook. You'll also need a needle for weaving in those ends, and of course, a pair of scissors. Now, like with this 6-inch square and all the 6-inch squares that we've done, even though the birthstone is my source of inspiration, you can make your 6-inch squares any color that you want to. It's a great way to use up some of your leftover worsted weight number 4 yarns. So go ahead and gather your supplies, and we'll get started with this one. Okay, let's get started. Of course, we're starting with our pink because we're doing the rose in the center and working out. So the first thing that we're going to do is make our slip knot. And then we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here's our chain of 5. We're going to take the tail of that yarn, loop it over our hook, and pull it through that loop and make a circle. Just going to make a little knot here just to hold that circle. There we go. So now we have a circle. If we turn it this way and put the tail over here, we'll stitch over that tail. So we'll put our hook in the loop of chains, pull up a loop, and just make a chain 1, and that gets us to the outside of our circle. So now we're going to stitch 8 single crochets around this chain loop. So we'll go in, we'll pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through 2 loops. There's 1. All right, there's 4. We need to do 4 more. All right, so there's my 8th. So now I have 8 single crochets around. I'm going to join to the first single crochet, not the chain 1, but the first single crochet with a slip stitch. So we're going to pull that loop through, and then that loop we're going to pull through the loop on our hook. And we're going to go ahead and chain 2. That's your first round. Now, if you have a hole, if you stitched over that string, you should be able to gently pull that string and close up that hole. Alrighty. Now, I'm just going to drop my ball on the ground so it can roll around and not be in our way. All right, so this next row, we're going to form the 4 petals. Let me show you on the board here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 petals, and that's what we're going to be forming on this row. So we chain 2. We're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the first single crochet. So I yarned over, go in the single crochet, pull up a loop. We have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. So that's 1 double crochet. We're going to stitch another double crochet in that same stitch. Then we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch in the next stitch. That's 1 petal. All right, so let's make a second petal. Chain 2, we chain 2, we're going to double crochet in the next single crochet 2 times. 1, 2, then we chain 2, and we go to the next single crochet and slip stitch. And again, chain 2. So there's 2 petals. Now we'll go to the next single crochet and stitch 2 double crochets. 1, 2, then we'll chain 2. We'll go to the next single crochet and slip stitch. So now we have 3 petals. Chain 2, and now we go to the next single crochet and stitch 2 double crochets. All right, now we're going to chain 2 and go right to that next single crochet and slip stitch. There we go. And then we're going to just slip stitch in that single crochet where we started, just to get us back where we belong. And this is the way it should look. You have 4 petals. For the next row, we're going to be stitching across the back of our work. If you have a little tail, I just stick my hook through and pull it to the front just to keep it out of the way, because we're going to be working on the back of our rows. So we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to go to the slip stitch between the next 2 petals, and we'll just stitch a slip stitch in that slip stitch. There we go. Pull a loop through, pull that loop through the loop that's on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see we made a little chain loop. We'll do the same thing. We chained 4. We'll go to the slip stitch between the next 2 petals and slip a stitch there. A slip stitch. Now we have 2 of those, and we're going to do it 2 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch in the slip stitch between the petals. And then we'll do it 1 more time. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wanted to jump off my hook. All right, so now we're back where we started, and we're going to put a slip stitch. There we go. In that slip stitch. There we go. And you'll see on the back that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those chain 4 loops. And that's where we're going to be stitching our next sets of petals. They're in those 4 chain 4 loops. We're going to slip stitch in that first chain 4 loop, pull up a loop, and chain 2. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stitching 2 petals instead of the 1 petal that we did, but we're going to do them similar. We'll chain 2, we'll stitch 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, then we'll chain 2, pull that over a little, and we'll just stitch a slip stitch through that chain 4, loop, and then we'll chain 2 again, and we'll just repeat that. 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and then chain 2 and slip stitch in that chain 4 loop. And see, that gave us 2 petals, and this petal sits right in front of it. So now we go to the next chain 4 loop, and we go in, we stitch a slip stitch and chain 2, and then we repeat what we did. 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and chain 2. And again, we slip stitch in that same chain 4 loop. And there's 2 more petals, and then we go to the next one. Now I just sort of push the front petal down just to get it out of my way. So we'll go right in that next chain 4 space, and we'll repeat what we did on these 2. Chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. Then we chain 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and slip stitch. So now we have 6 petals, 2, 4, 6. And now we have one more set to do on our last chain 4. So we slip stitch, chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and slip stitch, chain 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and slip stitch in that same chain 4 loop. And now we're going to just join to that first slip stitch, and we're going to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's the front, and of course I've got the string in the front just to keep it out of my way. We'll work that in with our needle later, because we're going to be going back to the back, and we're going to do what we did before we did this row. We're going to chain 4, we're going to skip those 2 petals, and we're going to slip stitch in the slip stitch between. One, 2, 3, 4. And again, you can see that makes a chain 4 loop, and this is where we're going to stitch with our green, but we wanted to do these in this pink color so that it would blend in and not stick out. Okay, so we chained 4, we're going to go to the slip stitch between, put our hook through, and make a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. And make sure you're skipping across the 2 petals on this one, not the 1. Okay, so here's the 2 petals. We're going to go to the slip stitch in between. Get in there. It's getting a little snug in there, so it's a little tight. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 3 of those chain 4 loops, and here's my last one, and I'm going to go right back where we started, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, my fingers in them so you can see them, chain 4 loops. So now we're going to cut our yarn and switch to our green yarn. Now we're ready to join in the green yarn. So we're going to take the green, put it on our hook, and pull it through that loop. Snug that down. Get those out of our way. And we're going to be working in these 4 chain 4 loops that we made. We're going to go in this first chain 4 loop that we made. Put our hook through, stitch a slip stitch, and chain 3. Now this chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet. We're going to stitch 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and stitch 3 more double crochets. And this is going to form the corners of our square. So you can see I have a chain 3, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets. That form my first corner. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to push those petals down out of my way, and I'm going to go in the next chain 4 loop that we made. And we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, and this will be our second corner. Chain 2. So now we have 1, 2 corners, and we have 2 more to make. And like I said, I just sort of push the flower forward so I can find that chain 4 space that we made. And we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in the same chain 4 space. Okay, so there's another corner made. Chain 2, and we just have 1 corner left to make. So we'll push the petals forward on that one and do the same thing. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Chain 2, and now we'll join to the top of the chain 3, and then we'll slip stitch over to the corner there so that we're in the corner. We wanted to slip stitch in the green because if we went ahead and joined the white and slip stitched over, you'd have a couple of stitches up here that would be white and would stick out. So when you're changing colors, just make a couple of slip stitches in the top of the double crochets and then into the chain 2 space, and that gets you back over to the corner because we are going to be changing to our white. Let me show you the back. Here's our strings. We've got our corners now, and so we're going to be changing to the white yarn. And we didn't want that white yarn to show when we slip stitched. Okay, let's go ahead and join in our white. Now this is a corner, so we're going to go in, slip stitch, and chain 3. The chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and then we'll stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And from here and the next row, it's similar to stitching up a regular granny square. All right, so there's my corner. We're going to chain 2. We're going to go in the chain 2 space and stitch 3 double crochets. Whoopsie, there we go. Then we'll stitch 2 chains and we'll do the next corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and 3 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. And we'll repeat this on the next 2 corners. We'll make a corner of 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space. So we'll repeat this 2 more times. So I repeated it, the corner, the side, the corner, and the side. And now we're just going to join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets. And then slip stitch in the corner and chain 3. And then we're going to repeat what we did on the last row. The only difference is we'll have 2 chain 2 spaces. So we'll do the corner the same with 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and of course on this one our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Chain 2, 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2 and 3 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. Chain 2, and then we do the corner all over again. And so we'll repeat this on all 3 sides. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the chain 2 space, and chain 2. And then we'll repeat that on the next 3 sides and then join to the top of our chain 3. I finished this row, the corners and the 2 sets of 3 double crochet chain 2s. We're going to join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch, and then we'll slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets to get us to the corner, and then slip stitch in the corner and cut our yarn. There we go. Now we're going to join back in our pink yarn. And this last row is all done in single crochets. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 just to get that pink on there. We'll go in our corner and we'll stitch 2 single crochets. 1, 2, then we'll chain 2 and stitch 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. That's the corner. Then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in the top of each of the double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll stitch 2 single crochets in the chain 2 space. All right, and we'll continue that across, stitching 1 single crochet in each double crochet and 2 single crochets in the chain 2 spaces. And this is just going to give us a nice edge. And of course, repeat the rose color. we're coming to our corner, so we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in those 3 double crochets. Now in the corner, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. We're going to chain 2 and then stitch 2 single crochets again. And this is the way the outside edge will work. 1 single crochet in each double crochet and 2 single crochets in the chain 2 spaces. Okay, we're at our last. All right, so we're to the next corner, and again 2 single crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. We'll continue to repeat this just like we did here. 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, then 1 single crochet in each double crochet and 2 single crochets in the chain 2 spaces. And we'll do this all the way around. And when we get back over here, we'll join to the first single crochet. So I finished the trim all the way around, and now I'm going to join to the first single crochet, and I'm going to tie off. Okay, I'm going to put my hook behind. I'm going to pull that loop through like that, and that pulls it to the back, and that just gives us a much better finish. All right, so now we need to take a few minutes and weave in our ends. Use your needle. Make sure you stay within the color when you weave in so it doesn't show through. Just thread it on there and just go through a few stitches. Make sure that you don't just go through holes. Go through a few stitches going one way and then the other, trying to get through some of the fiber of the stitches like that. Go ahead and stitch those down. All right, now I'll finish off the other ones after a bit, but this is our rose quartz square. And if you want the patterns for the other 9 months before this one, they are also on that link that's underneath the video. You can click on that link. There's a little tab that says show more, and if you're on a phone, there's a little black arrow. Just click on it and it will show the links. Just click that link where the pattern is at on my blog, and at the bottom of that blog is a link that will have all the other 6-inch squares that we've done for this year. So this is our rose quartz 6-inch square for the month of October.